with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, any public comment for the Economic and Physical Development Committee meeting? Hearing none. Community Development reports. Mr. Pete Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just passed these out. We've been having a little issue with some of our reporting on BSNA, but we had 13 zoning permits and we had 20 building permits for the month of May. We have only one new residential structure. However, we have about 4 coming for the month of June that are in our stacker. So things seem to be moving quite quickly. Enforcement, we have a couple of hot ones that we've been dealing with. I could not get the report to print out accurately, therefore I did not provide it. So we will catch up with you folks at the next meeting on that. But we're scattered with some fairly intensive violations. Some are working themselves out quite nicely themselves, but just take a little bit of time and on the phone, those sort of things. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Questions?
Is most of them just junk people have around their house?
Those are a few ones. Those are usually low priority. Some of the hotter ones are we have include fencing in right-of-ways and private road easements. We've got some illegal uses that are going on. And we have a couple of building permits necessary on some commercial sites.
Sounds like a lot. I had one question.
Yeah.
Pete, you remember the meeting we had out in Bennington a couple of months ago? We're gonna try to get something like that going again. Would you be open to that, or?
Oh, absolutely. I think what that would do, because a lot of these are junk and debris, and we're talking with some of these people that get complaints. I mean, their porch looks better than mine. Yeah, it just depends on where you're at and how vocal your neighbors are. Having that at the local level, I think would give some support instead of us being pulled far and wide for sometimes very minor issues or neighborhood disputes.
Fortunately, my neighbors are a little ways away, so.
Yeah. There were 3 townships that expressed interest, and it'd be nice for us to start with a pilot with 2 or 3 of those townships.
So Bennington, Oda, and Perry.
Those were the 3 that were at the meeting, and it would be nice to start a pilot with those 3 to see how it would work.
I know mine have also expressed interest.
We can include more.
Yeah, I think it went really good, so going forward, I think
I
that.
guess I don't know what state townships are doing.
Well, the idea that it's the county's responsibility to enforce a blight ordinance that the county doesn't have. So it was kind of just an education piece to explain to the townships that essentially Pete's not the bad guy. And so now we just got to do some work on what it would look like for the townships to, well, Bennington has an ordinance that their attorney wrote, but get some of the other ones to either, I don't know, contract with us or give us.
You have to give us authority to do that, because right now, as it is, the county cannot enforce junk and debris as far as blight goes. Now, there's other reasons that we can clean it up, but for blighted property, that's the township's responsibility. So they have to do a resolution to give us the authority to do that if they want us to enforce it. And so we got to work out an agreement.
And we want to make sure that we have enough staff in place with I imagine a local unit is going to throw the kitchen sink at us at first. Things that we have considered for years as low priority are going to come up to the top there for that individual township. So, we want to make sure we're appropriately staffed. We want to make sure we're not overcommitting. We want to make sure this pilot has some degree of understanding as to how it'll start, and I think it's good to start with a good mutual understanding.
Yeah, just having those conversations and making sure that we each understand what.
And I think Dr. Boggs did a good job of that when we met with Bennington, just saying there have to be some parameters here, because again, it's going to be, once the township publicizes they're doing that, there's going to be a lot of calls.
Right, because I don't think any of the townships really understood what, and it was very well received, so.
Well, we don't want to stumble right at the starting line.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think that, like you said, I don't think we should start moving everything to top priority, but getting some of the ones that are the real, you know, the ones that people said, oh yeah, that's been like that since I rode the bus in elementary school, those maybe. Great, thank you. That's all I got.
Further, yeah.
Just on another area, and this is the renewable energy preemption that passed. Now, I haven't heard whether enough signatures have been collected to put that on the ballot, but
Didn't make it.
nobody seems optimistic about that.
It
So
didn't
we're
make
gonna
it.
be
Did not make it.
faced
It
with,
did not
It did not make it.
the word is out, okay. But we're gonna be faced then in the fall, and in Perry Township and Woodhull Township, of course, they defer to you for the zoning and administration, but the issue's gonna be the application of the statute, rather the municipal statute is, complies or corresponds with what the state has basically dictated what the requirements are gonna be. I did it, when I attended the MTA meeting, I spoke with the gentleman who was the Director of Community Involvement for Consumers Energy. One of the things he suggested to me, and I think I may have mentioned this to Dr. Boggs, I don't know if I did anybody else, there was a suggestion on his part that they might even, I took they might even be willing to agree to something more stringent than the state allows. I mean, the state has preempted, and presumably their rather lax requirements would apply. But he suggested to me that they might be willing to negotiate something stricter. So just as a heads up to you, and I think maybe our county attorney might want to look into that too, because I'm not sure the legality. They can rely on the rather lax state standard to get by with less. Can they really agree to something that is more stringent than the state has dictated? And I think that's something that we may face in the fall, is it goes, the state statute goes into effect, I think it's November 28th or something like that.
So one of the things they're faced with is that it will take at least a year for each application to make it through the Public Service Commission. So this might be a way of trying to go around that.
My understanding also is that if we have a compliant ordinance, that
Which we do not.
we do not, but if we had a compliant ordinance with the state, then the petitioner could enter into a host agreement. And I'm not sure how exactly that works, but I mean, I think that's where he's looking at the gray area. Later on in the agenda, you have the PUD ordinance, that's a negotiated district. And so that puts you in that negotiation phase for, you know, any type of development. But for renewable energy, we've seen the type of pushback that can be received from the general public. So, you know, even though you're having these intense negotiations, I think you may find yourself in a position of you're still not making everybody happy.
Well, certainly, not many people are going to be happy. I'm not even sure that's a worthy goal, but it's the extraordinary circumstance we have here where the statute has specified what the maximum that we can require of these developers. That's really different than the PUD, where that's still basically left up to zoning.
Yeah, but I agree with Dr. Boggs in the statement that if a year versus going through 3 to 5 months with a local community, yeah, you're okay to push it back, have additional setbacks. They could do that anyways, even under the state. I mean, the state's just establishing minimums. They could still be a good neighbor and push it back another 200 feet.
Well, but I'm not sure they can.
Well, no, but it's
We
a
should-
minimum, it's a minimum under the state, so, you know, if, you know, they're looking at a cost benefit there. If they can save 6 months in the production line, then of course they're gonna offer a couple hundred feet, but they could do that anyways as a developer. I'm just, I just, this is
That-
the,
I think
this is
that's
a
kind of
community,
the
this
key
is a
question.
community involvement specialist, so I think that that person's role is very much to encourage as quick as possible, getting something through, and that's her title.
Okay? All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on to agenda items. I think we're gonna move straight to agenda item B.
I think you just need to acknowledge that you
We reviewed
received
it.
the L 4046 that has all the taxable values. You don't have to accept them.
Okay, so that's item A, is just to review this form. And item B is the motion to approve. So I look for a motion to approve the L 4046 form as presented to establish the 2024 summer tax millage rate and authorize the chairman and clerk to execute the document.
I'll make that motion.
The motion with support, discussion.
I had one question for Pete. On page 2, where it's the personal property, in the industrial column, so Hazelton and Venice, is that the solar or is it in utility?
It'd be both. It'd be
Both.
an industrial, personal, and in utility. The utility's gonna be the underground lines or the above-ground transmission lines. The industrial is going to be the actual fixtures, or I shouldn't say fixtures, going to be actually the personal property that they are drawing on the renewable energy from. So it'll be the panels, it'd be turbines, it'd be those sorts of things, but once we get underground or above ground and it's regulated by the ITC, then it becomes a utility.
Okay.
Because it's carrying other product, other electricity.
Okay.
So what's important to note here is that your millage rate has gone down again because of Headley. So what started off as 5.55 mils over time is now at 5.3840 mils, which means that you're levying less taxes, but your value has gone up. So instead of 12, it was around 12.7, 12.8 that you got last year. This year you'll collect about 13.7 million, which is the operating millage for the county. So last year it went up about 600,000. The year before that it was 1.1 million. This year it's going to go up about $918,000, which is a good increase. Could be better.
It says a lot about what's going on outside of the solar panels. Those are depreciating at a different framework or a different time period there. But what you're seeing is a lot of growth in the county at that point, and a lot of turnover of properties on uncappings.
And so the classifications are also what we're approving, right? Or
On the 4046 is for, it's what the 4046 is just a compilation of all the taxable values coming out of March Board of Review. And so that is more an FYI. The other is your millage rate, which I strongly suggest you approve so we can levy taxes.
Okay, so that's a 4029 though.
Right, that's the 4029 with the millages. The other one's just
Oh,
a
okay.
compilation of taxable
There's a
values.
typo on the
Yeah, there
agenda.
is.
So it's reviewed.
4029.
Yeah, I would ask you to modify your motion to approve the L 4029 and not the L 4046.
I'll make that amendment.
Okay, thank you. Support?
Support.
All right, perfect. All right, now any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of moving that on to Wednesday, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, moving on to Wednesday. That brings us to our second call to the public. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
See you guys Wednesday.
See you Wednesday. Good luck with all that.
This is
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First call to the public. Saying no one, we will go on to our treasurer's monthly report. Julie.
Hello, everybody. Right now, just kind of regular day-to-day activity in the office. The summer tax collection will begin July 1st, so things will pick up at that time because we do collect for Shiawassee Township. On another note, the land bank is very busy or has some cool things going on right now. As you probably have all seen, the Welcome In project is going to be demolition beginning in the next few weeks. That's wonderful. Randy Woodworth looking for new businesses to go in that spot, hoping for a couple restaurants. But so good there. And then also a project in Durham, the 230 West Main Street. We're looking for that demo to happen too shortly. So
The old golden spike.
yeah, so good things going on there, very exciting. We're also, the land bank, a letter went out looking for any future projects. If you talk to anybody in your townships or cities that you work with, we're looking for possible future projects. We don't know for sure how much funding, but we are expecting some more funding to come for the blight elimination program. Can be a rehabilitation, stabilization, or demo. So if those communities have anything they would like us to look at, we're more than happy to get some projects, look at more projects for any place in town. Other than that, that's about it right now.
Anybody have anything for Julie? We would be remiss if we didn't ask about dog licenses.
Today they're at 3,523. So every day there's a few, handful of them every day.
Okay. Thank you. I did, Bennington Township did get a letter about the land bank, interest in property, so they talked about that at their meeting. I don't know what properties, they did talk about a house, but then were concerned about how that would work. You know, because then the property would have a lien against it. So, I don't know.
Depends.
So privately.
Depends who owns it. So if it's a government project, there's no lien.
Right.
If it's a personal project, then
Right.
there would be a lien against it for the person who owns it to prevent unjust enrichment.
Yep.
They can get around that by the township having the property.
There also, as I recall in the last round of provision, where if you held the property continuously for 7 years, the lien is forgiven.
That's right.
So it's to prevent flipping.
Right.
That's a pretty generous thing. Just hold the property for 7 years and they'll forgive that. That's big to me.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. I don't know if that will make any difference, but certainly worth noting and passing along to the townships.
But all the townships, I'm sure, have pieces of property that are burnt homes or old buildings or things like that that have fallen into disrepair that they'd like to see cleaned up. Now's the time to start making a list so that when we call for projects, we can get them in and we can work towards getting them removed.
Yeah, that reminds me, there's a Barnett State Road that's half south down, I don't know.
That would work too?
Yeah, I think that's Shiawassee Township, I think, isn't it?
Probably.
Sounds like it. But yeah, some unsafe structures, if we could
Yeah,
get
it's
those.
been half down and half up. Really a mess.
All right, anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And for our first agenda item, I would entertain a motion to adopt the 2023 audit and place it on file.
So move. Support.
Moved and supported.
So very briefly, you have a one-page summary. They sent me the full audit to print while we've been sitting in this meeting. So I will print it out, you will have it tomorrow. They will be here to do a presentation on Wednesday. The high points are that we got a clean opinion, which means the audit came back good. There was no material findings or weaknesses, which is a big change from about 4 years ago when there was about 12 of them. So we are working very diligently to make sure everything is good. We have added to the fund balance, but if you remember, we adopted a zero balance budget for 2023 and we did for 2024. So we added $983 to the fund balance this year. But we knew that was gonna happen when we balanced it to zero last year, which means our expenses equals our revenues. But our fund balance overall is at 16%, and the state recommends at minimum of 10 to 15. So we are above the threshold now for the first time in many years.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments? I guess we can.
Oh, no budget overages and no deficiencies.
Okay. And they'll be here in person once.
Yes, they
right?
will. They could do it by Zoom or in person. I asked them to come in person.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a little drive.
But they're in the UP.
Well, I remember the first time that they did our audit, and they came down, and there was like a snowstorm, and there were people in the county that said they couldn't get to work, and these people were here and brought donuts from Escanaba.
They're from the UP, they said, what snow?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were impressive. All right, if there's no further questions on that, all those in favor of moving this to Wednesday signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. That brings us to the clerk's year-end report, and I would entertain a motion to accept that report and place it on file.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Caroline, do you?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll notice in the courts that the restitution is down significantly. That is something that we don't have any control over. That is, the fees are being waived from the courts, and so there's no collection. But when you're looking at the vital records end of things and see all the numbers, every time you see a recorded or a copy or an original, those numbers are documents that have to be touched. And so we manhandle a lot of documents in both offices, and it's somebody doing something to it every single time. So these are records that are not electronically, received or anything like that. We do have means where we do it electronically to the state for recordings, but we're touching a lot of paper every single day. And the clerk's offices are not revenue-making offices, so we're just mandated.
So restitution, is that restitution or is that fines or both?
So restitution would be something that they would have to pay to make something whole.
Right.
Costs and fines would be something that we would get.
So we're down in the fines.
Costs and fines.
Costs and fines, okay.
Restitution would be something paid to, say someone breaks into your car and you catch the person,
Right.
the cost of replacement.
Yeah,
Yep,
sorry, wrong word.
oh, that's okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't not getting people the restitution, but, so why are the fines?
And so they'd have to ask the courts, they're the ones that set those.
All right.
The number of, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
The number of birth certificates and marriages seems to be very steady.
Yes, yes.
Those should go together.
Sure.
Right now, for this month, so far, we were at 834 deaths, which seems to be high for us right now from January to this early into June. And we're normally ending the year at 800 deaths. So
Really, so that's, yeah, that
we've got
is.
a lot of deaths.
Well, that's also connected to the turnover of the houses that Pete was talking about that uncap the taxes. Because those parcels are moving.
Yeah.
Well, if they go to a family member, they shouldn't be uncapping.
Well, I don't know.
A lot of them are being sold.
As much as I'd love to discuss uncappings. Anything else on the clerk's Service report, Brad?
CPL renewals and new applications are also very steady.
Yes, which is good because that income helps pay for one of my staff that was needed there.
Excellent. Okay. Nothing else?
Less fines, more guns?
Yeah. I like that.
Sounds like we're headed in the right direction.
Yep. We'll take it.
I'm in trouble just for laughing at that.
All right, if nothing else, I'll vote yes. And Brad? Anybody, Bill, for moving that forward?
Yes,
All those in favor?
yes, all in favor,
Okay.
yes.
All right, which brings us to the RESD contract, so I would look for a motion to approve the contract with the Shiawassee RESD for technology support for 2 years at $118,500 and authorize the board chair to execute the same.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
So very briefly, we outsource our IT to the SRESD, and they provide us services. This particular one is for the bulk of the county. We have 3 contracts with it. We have one that's just for 911 and the sheriff's department, one that's just for the health department, which you will see tomorrow. But this one is for all the other general fund departments. So that's everyone in this building, that's district court, circuit court, clerk, treasurer, all of them. And so for 118,000, we can't have really a staff member do it when we can bear the full weight of the RESD tech team to do this work. And they would like a 2-year contract or renewal, and it will be the same as it was for the last 2 years. So there's no inflation in their numbers. It's budgeted for, and it's our standard practice.
I can't believe it hasn't run out, so
Me neither.
we're lucky.
And they provide excellent service,
Right.
excellent.
Good.
Yep, I've not heard any complaints.
No?
All right, anything else on that? All those in favor of moving that forward signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. That moves forward. Which brings us to our final agenda item. I would look for a motion to approve the board chair's recommendation for the appointment of John Plowman to fill the remaining term due to a vacancy on the Shiawassee County Road Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
So briefly, there was a vacancy from the resignation of a road commissioner. We put out an application. We received 4 applicants. We met with the road commission, Greg and myself, Chairman Broder and myself met with the road commission and went over all 4 applicants. Some followed directions, some did not follow directions. We reviewed all of them. Some specified political party as they were required to, some did not. And then evaluated them, and it was a consensus that we appoint John Plowman in the chair's recommendation.
And if I should, Tom,
Yes.
I'd like just for all of you to know, we had 4 applicants, as Dr. Boggs said. We really had 2 that were standouts. We had one applicant who was actually retiring out of the road commission after several decades, obviously would be qualified technically at knowing all of the different things that were needed and so on for the road commission. And of course we had John, who has been involved heavily with the road commission while he was part of this body, not to mention his understanding of the community and all of the other intricacies that go along. It seemed to me, and I think I got a general consensus, that while there was one person perhaps more technically knowledgeable about road, that isn't really necessary for a board that sets policy, and someone who retires out of an organization to be on the board. And I don't know this person at all, I'm not saying it would happen, but there's always a risk that a person will come in with certain biases either on their own or other people in the organization with them, so it seemed best to avoid that. And I think John will do an excellent job.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Greg, for sure.
Is it term for how long?
2.5 years.
And then he's gotta run?
Yeah, it's a
Gotta run,
6-year
John?
term.
Yeah.
I'm declaring now, John.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're 6-year terms, it's not a regular 4-year term.
Yeah, it's a 6-year.
Right.
How old would you be then, John?
Old enough.
Don't answer that.
Yeah,
All right, anything else on that item? Then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed the same, and we'll make the final vote on that Wednesday. And seeing no public, any public? No, we are adjourned.